Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into this week's edition of Bullring Breakdown. I want to thank everybody for bearing with me here. A little bit late here on the race recap. So race recap here for August 30th. It's Tuesday. I know usually these things come out on Monday, but with the holiday, I had to work in the morning on Monday. I wanted to run a demolition derby in the evening, and we just couldn't make the time on Monday night. This is the first ever solo pod. Terry Pierce, he was busy tonight, couldn't make time this evening, so I figured I'd just get this race recap out to everybody and just do it myself. I like to say that he doesn't bring much to the show anyway, so I guess we'll find out, right? I know he'll listen to this, so I don't mind me picking on him just a little bit here as we get underway. But I do want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe on the YouTube page, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Woodhall Raceway on Facebook, and Woodhall Raceway 64 on TikTok. So, with that being said, I guess we will just get right into this thing. I'm just going to kind of breeze through the heats. Not much. There's really not too much to touch on. The heats kind of went all pretty much green to checkered as far as I can remember. I'm about 3 days late now, so I guess who really knows. Insinger Performance Modifieds. They were won by Russell Morseman, who might be the hottest modified driver at Woodhall recently, and Dayton Brewer. Hometown Excavation Crate Sportsman. They were won by Kenny Peoples Jr. and Connor Brown, who actually finished in first and beat his wife. So, it's something for Connor, I guess. Vintage Cars, they were won by Tim Sebring and Joe August Jr. It's a Classics on Dirt Stock Car Club. They were back there in July. Always great to have them. Kind of a cool thing. That was way before my time, so I never really got to see much of them actually race on the track. So good to see them when they come back. Wicked Tees Quad C. That was Blake Snyder, Chris Woodard, and Nick Brown. I also want to mention we had a bunch of stuff for this. All Bark No Bite. That's Nick Brown and his group. They put up some extra money. So did Westfield Beverage. They both were ended up being presenting sponsors on the evening, and they put up some extra money to go towards the Quad C feature event that ended up paying 1,000 to win. Um, just I don't know. The great stuff by them. It's always nice to have people throw some extra money in and some good cash there for the Quad C guys, as they also had the Dave Klein Memorial Dash for Cash. So, Southern Tier Custom Rush Crate Late Models, they were won by Steve LeBaron and Kurt Stebbins. Joe Wilcox Performance Automatic Street Stocks, Glenn Reitner and Teddy Morseman. And the Lad Road Auto Hobby Stocks were won by Scott Brown and Brandon Conklin. Uh, like I said, it's pretty much all just nice and easy for the heat races. I'm trying to remember here. I don't think I ever thanked our presenting sponsors for the evening, so let me just go ahead and do that. So the night that was brought to you by All Bark No Bite, Westfield Beverage, S&D Pool Specialists, and Big T Processing. So we cannot thank them enough. Sorry I forgot to do that. Terry not being here is throwing me all out of sorts, so I'm gonna go ahead and blame him. But yeah, so that was the heat races, and then we got into the Warriors. Bella Morseman, she led this thing the whole way. Um, she's been on a tear in that Teddy Morseman owned car. I think this is her second or third win in a row. She's really starting to make it tough for Caden Thomas if he's going to try to fight back in the point standings. I do also want to mention that it was pretty nice. We had 6 Warriors, so that's about double what we've been getting. So Bella Morseman, she picked up her 7th win of the year. Caden Thomas finished second. Layla Hoteling third. Chase Warner was fourth. Um, Also, Courtney Thomas and Aurora Anderson were with us as well. So nice to have a few different cars there for the Warriors. Like I said, that's a class that's pretty much only been getting about 3 cars a week. So, nice to have a few other people show up and come out. And I know that Aurora Anderson, she ran her first set of hot laps. Didn't make it for the feature, but ran her first set of hot laps. So hopefully she'll be back with us here next weekend. And hopefully next year too. I'm not sure of the age on her. Let me go here and see if it says her age here. No, it doesn't. Nope. So I guess I'm not exactly sure on her age, but hopefully she'll come and race with us next year too. 13. So yep, she would be eligible to race next year. So yeah, hopefully we can get a few more cars in that class. I know we got a couple that are moving up. So but Bella Windsor seventh. Then we moved into the Dave Klein Memorial Dash for Cash. Uh, that was won by Blake Warner. You know, Blake Warner's been the man to beat in a four-cylinder pretty much all year long this season. Uh, he came to give Wesley Hoteling a challenge, and boy, did he ever. He's already got the point championship locked up after this weekend. Just a uh, unbelievable for his first full year in points racing at Woodhall. Just what he's been able to do. There's not enough good things that I can say about Blake, and just the fact that he could go win Dave Klein Memorial that was put on by Wesley Hoteling. Great job by Wesley. He uh wanted to put this thing together for Dave. Dave Klein, he worked on Wesley's car I mean, you could see him every Saturday night. He was working on Wesley's car, Nate Freeland's car, always willing to help out somebody in the pit area. So great job by Wesley Hoteling for organizing an event for a great guy, 500 to win, and good job for Blake Snyder for picking that up. Then then we ran the vintage cars. The vintage cars, they pretty much uh just what they always do. They come and they don't have many cautions. They run a clean race, and it's usually a pretty good race. So I got to try to remember this off the top of my head because I don't think I have the notes written down here. Oh, yes, I do. Look at that. Look at that. My girlfriend came in clutch because I didn't have it written down. She has it written down in her notes. So would you look at that? Vintage cars. The modified feature was won by Tim Sebring. The sportsman feature was won by Mike Jacobs, and the vintage feature was won by Roger Williams. As you know, if you come to the Woodhall Raceway and you see the vintage cars, usually it's three divisions all in one race. They race all together. We throw them all together and they race. And usually, like I said, they put on a pretty good show. So good for them. I think that was Tim Sebring's first time back in a vintage as long as I can remember anyway. So nice to have a few different cars with us. That is that for them for this season. They will not be back for the rest of the year. Unfortunately, if you missed out on that, you'll have to wait till next year at least. So then we had an intermission. I'm trying to remember if there's anything fun that happened in intermission. I don't believe so. I don't believe. I think intermission was pretty much well, and everything went pretty easily there at intermission. So that's always good, when you don't have too much of an issue. So then we got into the Insinger Performance Modifieds. Uh, Dayton Brewer. Dayton Brewer, he's a guy that needed some good luck. He 2 weeks ago he blew a motor. And then last weekend well, I guess 3 weeks ago he blew a motor, and then a couple weeks ago he blew out a rear end. And then this past weekend he started second, led at the beginning of the race. The caution comes out on lap three. Uh, Dayton Brewer's pretty much all by himself for most of the race. He got into a little bit of lap traffic. He had a really nifty move to shoot the gap between the middle of a couple of lap cars, but for the most part, Brady Foltz, he was able to close the gap a little bit when Brewer was trying to work through lap traffic, but in the end, Dayton Brewer picked up his second feature win of the year. Brady Foltz finishes in second, Ron Cartwright Jr. third, fourth was Jake Ginn, and fifth was Russell Morseman. Um, so, when you're looking through it, Dayton Brewer, he really needed a good week. He came in tied for the points 2 weeks ago, blew that motor, blew a rear end, had one lap in 2 weeks. Just about a nightmare scenario as you can have for somebody chasing a championship. So I'm sure he needed that win a lot. And Brady Foltz, ever consistent. Brady Foltz finishes second, and Ron Cartwright, Jake Ginn, and Russell Morseman. Morseman, he's had this surge. He said in Victory Lane a couple of weeks ago, that ever since that Wednesday night show, they found something in that car, and it showed. He's had a lot of speed lately. So then we're gonna go through here. Most of them were all, Wally Wade was back with us. Josh Mudge. I don't know much about Josh Mudge. I see his name pop up every once in a while, but I don't really know too much about the guy or really anything about him. I know he's from Windsor, New York, but I couldn't even tell you where that is. So that's what I can tell you about him. Good to see both Coots with us. Colton's been racing Sportsman at Woodhall. It's nice to have Adam back with us. Adam raced, I believe, over at Outlaw for most of the year, and it's nice to have him back. He's always he's a good guy. So nice to have him back. So yeah, that does it for the Insinger Performance Modifieds. Hometown Excavation Crate Sportsman. Glenn Trowbridge, he got out to the early lead. Then the caution came out on lap two. Glenn Trowbridge continues to lead. Then Isabel Brown is able to take the lead on lap number seven. But then after that, caution comes out on lap 13. Isabel had the field covered. She drove from seventh, picked up the win. Uh, I, the top three. Isabel won her third feature of the year. Tim Gill finished second. Kenny Peoples third, and the Caden Lawson finished fourth. Quentin Buchanan finished fifth. When you look at that top five, they're they're the same players. They're the same guys that come in just about every week and pretty much all run to the front whenever they're there. I know Isabel Brown and Caden Lawson didn't run a complete year this year, but whenever they're there, they run right up at the front. So that's just about what you see. In the process, Kenny Peoples Jr. did lock up his second consecutive track championship for the Hometown Excavation Crate Sportsman. That's pretty amazing feat to do it with a week left, and there's a few of our guys that were able to do that. So kudos to them. Todd Titus, he was there with us, and he with Afton not racing, every time Afton doesn't race, Todd comes down. That's just about how it goes. Brandon Morseman and Scotty McCrae, they're a couple of guys who had tough luck, and it was good to see them back. Brandon Morseman, what was it? Probably about a month and a half ago, uh, broke something in that front end when he was avoiding the thing that with oh boy, with Stephen Knapp and Carter Crooker, and where Kyle Leach got into it, and he ended up having a lot of damage. And Brandon Morseman was able to get by, but he did break something in that front end, and that's what I'd have to imagine that's been what's keeping him out for this year. And so it was good to have him back with us. Unfortunately, his night ended with him on the hook again, so not the night that he wanted. Scott McCrae, uh, I talked to him before the races. He said he was pretty much just, he had some family stuff come up and he wanted to spend time. He's got young kids at home, so you can't blame anybody at all for that. So good to have them both back with us. And then I think the rest of them are just everybody that's there every week. Um, So then we had the Wicked Tees Quad C. This paid 1,000 to win. And I also wanted to throw in that Mobile Services also put in $100 for the hard charger, and $50 extra for second and $50 extra for third. So I believe that ended up being 1,000 to win, 550 for second, and I'm not sure at third. So that's some good money there for the Quad C guys. Usually they don't get a lot of chances to really race for big money at Woodhall, so nice to have them there, and it was nice to have the car count. 22 cars, you can't shake a stick at that. That's really all anybody could ask for. So getting underway here, Chris Woodard, he led. Caution comes out on lap number four. Uh, Unfortunately for Nate Freeland, his night was over. He blew up on lap number six. Uh, Hopefully he can get back next week. I know he's was right up at the top in points. I'm not exactly sure if Wesley Hoteling was able to catch him or not. I know Hoteling had his own troubles, so we'll have to see how all that shakes out when we get to the points here in a little while. So that's on lap six. Caution comes out back on lap number 15, but this race was all rear wheel drive. Chris Woodard was out front. He started second. He drove away. Wesley Hoteling started fourth. He finished in second. Yeah, Wesley Hoteling. I'm sorry, Willie Easling. Willie Easling started in fourth, and he finished second. And those rear wheel drives got hooked up right at the top of the racetrack, and you couldn't pass them. Chris Woodard said it in the interview that when you get the track like that, you just can't give the front wheel drives that top lane. And those two didn't. They stuck right there. Nobody, I don't think Willie had much of anything for Chris. I would have, I don't know if Chris would have had anything for Willie. I think it was just whichever one of them two got out from first. So, good for Chris. It's a big payday. It seems like whenever there's a big check involved, it's Chris Woodard taking it home. So, Willie Easling finished Second, third was Nick Brown. Fourth was Preston Cobb. And fifth was Blake Snyder. And I do want to mention Shane Putt was the winner of the hard charger. He picked up 11 spots. So good for that there. Like I said, great job by Nick Brown, All Bark No Bite Logging, and Westfall Beverage, and Mobile Services for just their part in helping out there at that race and making it a big deal. Because, like I said, them four-cylinder guys, they don't really get to race for a whole lot, so it's nice for them to be able to get a little bit extra cash. So then we moved on to the Southern Tier Customs Rush Crate late models, and this race was all Johnny Waters. Uh, if you've been to the Woodhall Raceway, and I would assume that if you listen to this podcast, you know what I'm talking about, that when the 11 pulls up into the racetrack, you got the other late models had better be on it, because John Waters is probably the best in a late model that Woodhall's seen, and I don't know. I would say ever, but you know, that's before my time. So I'd say probably one of the best I've ever seen. So John Waters, he started on the pole, and you're not. It's going to be tough to get by him. Steve LeBaron tried, but he couldn't do it. The Waters was too fast. Caution came out on lap number 18, but it didn't matter. While John Waters picks up his second win of the year, Steve LeBaron finishes second, Brett Marlatt third, Kurt Stebbins was fourth, fifth was Jacob Wilbur. Uh, So, like I said, you give that 11 the front starting position, and it I hate to say it's all over from there, but it was this week, and a lot of times when John's there, that's about how it goes. So, good for him. I do want to mention that it was nice to have Kurt Stebbins back with us, and Ron Watson. Boy, it's been a long time since I've seen Ron Watson's name pop up in here, and it was good to have him with us there. Uh, let's see here. Then we can move on to the Joe Wilcox Performance Automatic Street Stocks. Brian Butler led this race for a while. Caution comes out on lap number two. Uh, then Teddy Morseman, he takes over the lead on lap four. And then there's a caution on lap 7, 8, 10, and 11. And then after that point, I will tell you that this was a race of the year for at least the back half of this race. Um, because Brian Butler and Teddy Morseman put on an absolute show. Side by side racing for what seemed like about, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 laps. And it was great to see. It was a lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun to call. And they were just clean racing. I don't think they ever touched. If they did, it wasn't enough to really draw my interest any. So I don't know. It was one of the best races I've ever seen, especially in the street stocks. And unfortunately for Teddy Morseman, I think he went into the corner and he got into a little bit of the loose stuff, and the car just pushed up. And unfortunately, that was how Butler was able to drive away with the lead. And then that allowed Glenn Reitner to get by too. So I'd like to know. I want to talk to Teddy this week and see if maybe something that maybe if he got a little something in the car there, or exactly what happened. Because, or if when Glenn got in front of him, he just wasn't able to get back by him. But, tough break there for him. But I will say he did end up clinching up the point championship. So you know what? Um, I know that he would want to win that too, but it's whenever you can lock up the championship with a week, I'd say he's got to be pretty happy. But Brian Butler, he's probably the happiest of all of them too. He picked up his second win, and that's a car. I think that car's got a first, a second, and a first in the past 4 weeks. So Brian Butler's been absolutely on one since he came back, and towards the latter half of the season, he came back, made his return after a few weeks off. It's just been absolutely putting a whooping on the field ever since then. So, like I said, Glenn Reitner, he was able to get by for second. Teddy Morseman was third. Drew Reitner was fourth, and fifth was Bradley Morseman, who drove from 10th. So, yeah, and then really nobody here that's, Jim Buck, Adam Lubner, nice to have them with us here. Nobody a little bit out of the ordinary there. They're about the guys that you'd expect to see there weekly. Tough night for Mike Spencer. Oh, didn't start. I guess I didn't even notice that. So, wonder what ailed the 425 of Spencer. Yeah, so then I guess we can move on to the final feature of the night. That was the Lad Road Auto Hobby Stocks. Um, and this was the Conklin show. Once again, Brandon Conklin came in with I believe it was a 34 point advantage over Dylan Phillip in the point standings, and he got out front, and that's all it took. I mean, Brian Austin, Brian Austin was our Southern Tier Customs Driver of the Week. He did everything he could, just it just wasn't enough. There wasn't enough that you could do to run down Brandon Conklin. When you get Brandon Conklin out in front like that, it's tough. And he got to the front early and quick, and he's there's a reason he's a back-to-back track champion in the hobby stocks, and you're gonna have a tough time getting by the one machine. So Brandon Conklin, he picks up his seventh win. Brian Austin finishes in second. Third was Dylan Phillip. Fourth was Jason Warner, and fifth was Scott Brown. So yeah, just a little bit of kind of a tough night for everybody, when Brandon Conklin gets out front, I guess, except for him. It's going to be tough to run him down. It was nice to have Eric Stanford back with us. He's the owner, Ken's Collision, sorry. And Brett Flint as well. And I do want to mention the 7B of Isaac Byler. Isaac stepping into the seat. Uh, the Flying Dutchman, I was told, uh, raced a long time ago, and hopping back behind the wheel. His son Cody getting out of it for whatever reason, and or couldn't race for whatever reason. I'm not exactly sure. So Isaac Byler hopping back behind the wheel of a race car, and I heard he broke a rear end, but I was told before that he was having an absolute ball. So I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't the last that we've seen of Isaac Byler. I hope it's not. I'd like to see him be at least able to race in the feature. So, but yeah, that was the night. It was a good night. I don't remember a whole lot of issues, but it's more for what we have Terry for. So, if there is an issue, I apologize. Maybe we can touch on it next week here with Terry here. Um, but I don't really ever remember anything really coming up. So it was a good night of racing, good clean night of racing. I think everybody had fun. I hope everybody had fun. It was sponsored by All Bark No Bite, Tree Service, Westfield Beverage, S&D Pool Specialist, and Big T Processing. Just it was a good night, and I thank everybody for showing up. I hope everybody had fun. And now I guess we can move forward here. And you know what? Without Terry here, this is gonna be a shorter podcast. It's kind of hard for me to just sit here and yap for what seems like forever. Uh, so I'm doing the best I can. I hope everybody doesn't hate it that much. So I just doing the best I can. Next week I'm hoping we can get Terry back in here, but I also didn't want to push this back another day, so I figured I'd just try to do this myself. So yeah, now we get to the point standings. Only 1 point or only one night left. Championship Saturday is this weekend. It will be an absolute awesome show. And Aiden Grover for the Insinger Performance Modifieds. He's currently sitting in the top spot. He's got a 3 point lead over Dayton Brewer in in second, and then 8 points back, sitting there in third is Brady Foltz, and 12 points back in fourth is Russell Moorsman, and sitting back there in fifth and 48 points back is Jake Ginn. So when you look at these points here, the only your top four mathematically have a chance. Now, Russell Moorsman, who's probably the hottest driver recently, is probably going to need some help. Um, you might get a bad night from one guy, but maybe a couple of them might be tough. Or so you never know. But he is not out of it by any chance. Aiden Grover sitting there's your point leader with a 3 point cushion, but he's got that 3 point cushion, and Dayton Brewer is going to have to start in the back of the redraw cars. So whether that puts him, I don't know, eighth or 12th or wherever that puts him, he's going to have to come from the back. And Aiden Grover, you see the speed that 21G's had all year. He's probably going to start in front of him unless he's got some bad luck in the heat. And you never know; those heat points they could come around if If Dayton Brewer could pick up the win in his heat race, and that's all draw region, or that's all draw. So if Dayton Brewer can get a good draw right out of the gate there, and he can start up front in the heat race or finish and win the heat race, he could get 5 points. He could cut into that gap of Grover. If Grover finishes third, that's only 1 point. Brewer would only have to beat him by, I believe, one spot, and then I think we go to wins, and then I'm not sure because I think they both have two. So I don't even know what would happen in that case. Maybe we'd have co-champions. We'd have to see. Brady Foltz also not out of it. Last year's track champion, 8 points back. Uh, he's probably going to start right up there. Same thing with Russell Morseman. So this will be a lot of fun to watch. That is definitely the closest battle on the card. That's one to watch. It's going to be a lot of fun. We can move down here to the Hometown Excavation Crate Sportsman. These are locked up, so this is official. Kenny Peoples Jr. wins his second consecutive track championship. Uh, Tim Guild finishes in second. Third is Quentin Buchanan. Fourth is Trowbridge, and fifth is Jacob Trowbridge. And I'm sorry, when I say it's all locked up, I just meant the championships locked up. I actually, though, when I'm looking at these, I don't, unless somebody doesn't show up, that top five kind of seems to be pretty much what I would think is stagnant. I mean, Tim Guild's got, what would that be? A 58 point lead over Quentin Buchanan. Buchanan's got a 40 point lead over Glenn Trowbridge, and Trowbridge has a 12 point lead over Jacob Trowbridge. So maybe 4, 5, 6 in there. Maybe that's where you could see some interesting things happen. Um, but it's for the most part, I'd say your top three are pretty much locked in. Your top three are definitely locked in. So yeah. Then we can move down Southern Tier Customs Rush Crate late models. Steve LeBaron's been giving this thing hell, man. Um, he missed the first week, and he's been trying to fight back into that point standings. Brett Marlatt, your current point leader, but Steve LeBaron's 13 points back. With the field of late models we've been getting, that's going to be a tall ask for LeBaron. If he wins both and Brett finishes second, that's only six. Um, I, I don't know. That 13 points in 1 week with the amount of cars that we get for the late models and with the consistency that Brett Marlatt's shown. Besides that week that he lost a drive shaft, he's top three every week, and that's tough. It's going to be tough to ever get the points there for Steve LeBaron, but he's going to come back and he's got a fighting chance, so he's going to try it. He sits second. Marshall O'Brien is third. He's 80 points back. Ricky Laux is fourth, 88 points back, and Joe Layfield is sitting there in fifth with 130 points back. It'll be kind of interesting to see here whether or not Ricky Laux could catch Marshall O'Brien or not. That's probably the only thing that you're really looking at there is to see whether or not Ricky Laux can really close that gap on the 80 points, or the 8 points, excuse me. Lad rode out of Hobby Stocks. Like I said, this one's wrapped up as well. Brandon Conklin, he picks up his second consecutive track championship as well. Dylan Phillip, he's currently in second. He is, what is that? 12 points back of Scott Brown. You never know. Scott Brown could climb right up in there. Scott Brown, he's got a 30-point lead over Joe Birdsell. So Joe Birdsell would have to need a lot of luck to creep into the top three there. And then fifth current leader for the Rookie of the Year, that is Reese Hackett. But he's got a 10-point lead over Jason Warner, and then he's about 100 or 50 back from everybody else. So that's pretty much going to be your top four. Um, Almost, I'd say the order. I guess Scott Brown might be able to close the gap on Dylan Phillip. You never know, but 12 points, it's kind of a tall ask in one weekend. And Wyatt White, I believe he's currently eligible. I don't know. We're gonna have to go through that, but he's currently leading the Rookie of the Year standings for that. I'm sorry, that was for the late models. Reese Hackett, Rookie of the Year for the hobby stocks. Joe Wilcox, Performance Automatic Street Stocks. Teddy Morseman, he locked it up. I didn't make a post. That's my fault. I'm not that good at quick math, and I have a lot going on in the booth. So, Teddy, if you listen, I apologize. There was nothing against you. I got your graphic all ready to go. You know what? Maybe I'll post it tomorrow. I just couldn't do that math off the top of my head that quickly. I didn't look at your heat points, and I guess I didn't realize it was that close coming into the night. But so Teddy Morseman, he does lock up a track championship. I would love to know how many. I think that's at least three in the street stocks that I know of. So he picks up his track championship. Dan Gardner currently sits in second. He has a, what would that be, 18-point lead over Dale Hoteling. So he's pretty much I can't imagine Dan Gardner losing more than 18 points to Dale Hoteling, but you never know. Dale Hoteling currently sits in third. He's the leader in the clubhouse for Rookie of the Year. Definitely going to win Rookie of the Year. I don't think Drew Reitner going to be able to catch up to him unless well, you know what? Even if Dale doesn't show up, he still can't catch up to him. So Dale pretty safely, sitting there in third, definitely the Rookie of the Year. So a good season for Dale Hoteling, his first foray into the street stocks. Nick the Quick Sealy, he sits there in fourth. He's 13 points back from Hoteling. Maybe he could close that gap, but it'd be tough. 14-point lead over fifth. That's Mike Williams. You're looking at these. It'd be tough for anybody to really jump into that top five or that top five to really move around too much. Everybody's pretty much just about safe in where they are. Wicked T's Quad C. This one wrapped up as well. Blake Snyder, 59-point lead over Nate Freeland. That is an absolute whooping that Blake Snyder came up from Pennsylvania this year and put on that field. Is he he made him earn it this year, that's for sure. Um, Second's Nate Freeland. He is only 5 points up on Wesley Hoteling. Wesley Hoteling, both of them had miserable weeks last week. I believe they both blew a motor. Wesley blew it in the heat race. He had to drive Ralph Teeter's car in the feature. Ball joint broke on that thing. I think he got up to seventh, I saw, and the ball joint broke, so had be he went, he went off for that. Nate Freeland, like I said, blew up a motor in the feature, so tough break for both of them. Real tough week, is they're gonna only 5 points separates them for that's a feature win. If one of them wins this week, you could see somebody climb into second. Your top three are pretty much all set though. They got about a 50-point lead over Joe Gillespie, who's sitting there in fourth. He has a 14-point advantage over Kaylee Morseman, currently in fifth. She's got a 6-point lead over Danielle Morseman in sixth. So you never know. The Morseman gals might be fighting it out for a final top five. So you never know that they get, if they get 15 cars, they could get jumbled up there all the bit. Joe Gillespie, he could fall by you. You could see Kaylee Morrison hopping into the top four after this would be her first. You know what? It doesn't say Rookie of the Year there, but Kaylee Morrison would be a Rookie of the Year, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Kaylee Moore. Yeah. I don't know why it doesn't say R. I know she drove the Warriors, but yeah, she'd have to be for the Rookie of the Year. So I'd have to believe that Kaylee Morseman would be a Rookie of the Year for the Wicked T Squad C, and she could climb up to fourth. She's only 14 points back. Gillespie has a bad week. She's fully capable to finish in the top five, and she can make her way towards the front. That's nothing to sneeze at. A top four, a young girl making her first start in the adult division. Um, Top four, that's a good deal. So she can make it there. And actually, you know what? If she sits right where she's at, top five is pretty awesome too. So either way, I have to think that she's pretty happy with the season that she put forward. Woodhull Warriors. Bella Morseman currently 11-point lead over Caden Thomas. Courtney Thomas is 64 points back. So two-horse race here, and really, you know, I just, with the car count, I don't know if Caden Thomas could get there. So he'd have to win. That would put him at five, and then he would need Bella Morseman to finish seventh, I believe it would be. Um, for a class that we've been getting three or four of them a week, I kind of looks impossible. So, Caden Thomas would need, I would say, a lot of cars to show up and a lot of bad luck for Bella Morseman, as it looks like Bella Morseman uh, gonna just continue on where that Morseman family seems to leave off. I'm trying to think of my entire career here as being the announcer. I think Bradley won the Warriors. Um, I think Russell Morseman the fourth won it. Now I think Bella Morseman. So uh, trying to think of who won it last year. You know what? Can't even remember. Oh, Marcus Kerr. So I guess I'm wrong. I guess the Morsemans did have their reign on last year with Marcus Kerr. So you know what? That goes to I guess that's where my head's at here on a Tuesday evening. So yeah, that's your points. I do want to touch on the IMCA's. You know, they got 1 week left. The last week of the season here, September 27th. Uh, they're going to be coming in here, and that's their fifth and final point show. Jacob Ingham's got a 5 point lead over Keith Lamphere. Jacob McConnell 7 points out. Fourth is Tyler Belcher, 12 points out. Jay McConnell is fifth, and he's 15 points out. So, just I can't wait to see how that shakes out too. The modifieds are really close, and you know, I think the modifieds might be like really the only one that when you really look at it, they're kind of the other ones are mathematically possible, but I think the modifieds are about the only one that's really close to watch, at least for the champion side of things. There's a lot of close battles here and there, 4, 5, 6 points between them, but for the most part, you're pretty much looking at the modifieds there. So now we can kind of look ahead here. September 6th, like I said, that's season championship night. That's going to be sponsored by Superior Propane and McCourt's Auto Collision. Uh, just two great sponsors, and championship night. The champions that we didn't interview this past weekend, we'll bring them down as well and interview them. Teddy, you're included. I'll make sure of it. And like I said, I might just put that graphic out next or tomorrow. I mean, he's got it locked up. Why wouldn't I? I probably should have done it today, but slacker. Um, so yeah, that's September 6th, this upcoming weekend. And then the weekend after, September 12th and 13th. You know what? I wish Terry was here to give me the finalized details. So I'm trying to remember exactly what I was told here. The New York 305 Sprint Nationals, I believe we're getting a band for Friday night. So after the races, I believe there's going to be a band playing and a bonfire and all of that. And that should be a great night. And I believe. I don't have the paper with me that has the format. So I believe Friday night is going to be draw redraw with passing points. No, no redraw. So draw with passing points uh for the sprint cars, and I believe they're running twin 20s. So twin 20 features, that's two 20 lap features for the sprint cars on Friday, and then the winners. You know what? I'm gonna have Terry explain all this a little bit better this week or next week, but I'm gonna try my best right now. So twin 20 features to set, and then if you win your the features on Friday night, you're locked into the dash on Saturday night. So that way you can start. So if you win Friday night, then I believe that's I believe you're locked into the pole dash on Saturday. Well, then when you come on Saturday night, we're expecting a boatload of cards. We're thinking a C main, a B main, and then you get to that A main, and you're going to have, I believe it's 30 laps for the A main. Uh, they're going to have a dash that'll set the pole position. So you're going to have two dashes. Um, they're going to set that's going to set your starting redraw spots. So the winners from Friday night, and then the cars that get into the redraw on Saturday, that will be your dashes, and that'll set the starting lineup for the beginning portion. Well, then we're thinking we're going to have a C main where we're going to take some guys out of that. They're going to race their way into their B main, and then B main, they'll race their way into the A main, like, they do any regular race. That's kind of the lowdown of what I want. The big main thing is that we're looking at a boatload of sprint cars. Friday night twin 20 features for the sprint cars, a band, a bonfire, come camp, come have a good time. Camping's free. Just let's have a good time. Let's enjoy it. It's going to be a great time. The racing's going to be awesome. If you watch a 305 sprint car race at Woodhull, they're absolutely phenomenal. And Mike Emhoff and his team do a great job. And you know that they're going to be have everything buttoned up and perfect for this New York 305 Sprint Nationals. And that's going to be brought to you by MSRP CarQuest of Elkland and Lowry Family Farms. and Dandy as well. Dandy, that's the 305 CRSA people, and they do a great job there as well. So then we can move into September 20th. That's the Full Fender Night Street Stock Woodhull 100, sponsored by Joe Wilcox Performance Automatics. You've been seeing the posts on Facebook. There's not much that can be said about what Joe Wilcox has done. This thing is paying a boatload of money. 2,000 to win, 1,500 for second. I believe it's 1,350 for third, 1,000 for fourth, 900, and then so on, and 250 to start. That's great money. That's great money for street stock. So I hope we pack the place with street stocks, and I hope it makes all of Joe's time worth it. Joe loves the stock class. He sponsors the class weekly. And he's just done a great job. He got a ton of marketing sponsors behind him for that. And anything that Joe and Gene do for the racetrack is just phenomenal in what they do. So hopefully that we see a bunch of street stocks come out to support him because he's a guy that truly deserves it. Um, And then, September 27th, we're getting right down there. Um, Season finale night, what's that? 4 weekends left, 5 races. Not a lot of racing left. So season finale night, that's going to be 2,500 to win Crate Sportsman. The IMCA, like I said, are having their final points race of the season. 600cc modifieds are back, and then the quad Cs as well. So, that should be a great night as well. And like I said, I just cannot believe how fast the season has gone. It just seemed like we got so much rain at the beginning that now we're getting into it, and it seems like it should almost just be mid-season. But I wake up at 4:30 in the morning and go to work, and it's 40 degrees out, and I just can't believe how fast that it went by this season. So that's what we got coming up at Woodhull. I do want to thank everybody for listening. I want to give a huge shout out here to All Bark No Bite Logging, Westfield Beverage, S&D Pool Specialist, Big T Processing. They were the presenting sponsors this weekend at the Woodhull Raceway. I want to thank Mobile Services. They put up money for the feature race for the Quad C, and I want to thank Wesley Hoteling as well for the Dave Klein Memorial. Terry Pierce of Southern Tier Customs, and a couple of nice checks for the four-cylinder guys. They don't get to race for big checks too often, so just want to thank him too. I know that he might kick me when he hears this, but I do want to give him a little shout out there. He does most of the checks I think he does all the checks for the racetrack, and he does a great job of that. So when he's not here to hear me telling him how great he is, I'll that's when I'll give him a little shout out. So just want to thank him as well. Want to thank you all for listening. I hope it wasn't too bad with me here flying solo tonight. Just please, everybody, please like and subscribe on the YouTube page, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Woodhull Raceway on Facebook, Woodhull Raceway 64 on TikTok. And once again, I thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a great week. I'll see you all Saturday.